Hi everybody, and great to see you all again. I'm Jo Hawley, I'm the British Consul-General here in Guangzhou, and today I have a very special guest joining me in this vlog. My friend and colleague from Beijing, Ash Green. He's here to talk about non-binary. And Ash, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ash Green. I'm First Secretary Trade Policy at the British Embassy in Beijing. So yeah, as Jo said, I'm non-binary. Which means that I don't identify as male or female, and so I'm just trying to do a little bit about explaining what that means.
Quite a hot topic at the moment as well in Chinese media and international media. A lot of discussion about a Japanese pop singer who's come out of non-binary recently, and more generally there's been a discussion around the Tokyo Olympics involving non-binary and also trans athletes.
Interestingly, in the music world it seems to be not uncommon. So Sam Smith, who is a very well-known British artist, came out as non-binary a couple of years ago, and also more recently Demi Lovato, who's also another pop singer. And so I think it's really cool that we're seeing a lot more exposure and people who are well-known in public domain, and it gives like this whole spectrum a lot more spotlight, and I think it really helps people understand when they can see kind of famous people living a life like that.
Today we're going to ask a series of questions. So we've collected some questions from colleagues to explore the topic in a bit more detail. So Charlotte, do you want to dive into?
Am I going first?
You go first.
Okay.
You go first. Grab the first.
This is like a raffle. What do you wear in day-to-day life? Menswear or womenswear? I don't believe there is such thing as menswear and womenswear. I think they're just clothes. And ultimately, clothes serve a purpose, which is to cover us up so we don't all walk around the streets naked. Today I'm wearing what I guess what people would consider to be women's wear. I guess I wear both, but I personally don't consider them to be anything other than clothes.
I intentionally wore trousers today. Actually, nobody really notices when a woman wears trousers, whereas actually if a man wears a skirt, then that's a big topic of debate. Incidentally, when I was a child, way back in history, in school, I wasn't allowed to wear trousers. We fought for that as part of our emancipation, to be able to wear trousers. The clothing debate, I think, is interesting in the context of a discussion around gender as a social construct, because clothes are certainly something that we have constructed for ourselves, and the fact that we've gendered our clothes is certainly something that we have constructed for ourselves, and you see very different in different parts of the world as well in terms of different cultures.
Yeah.
So definitely one of those things that's very clearly it's something that we have constructed and then communicate that within our society that makes you fit into one or the other.
Yeah.
Non-binary, gender fluid, bisexual, transgender, there are so many categories, and this question is, what are the differences?
Non-binary basically means someone whose gender identity is not male or female, or it doesn't fit within the kind of the generally understood ideas of male and female. It's a catch-all term, so there are different. We can go even further into other terms. But gender fluid, I would say, is a sub. So if you have like non-binary on the top, gender fluid is probably one below that. So I think someone who is gender fluid would probably identify as non-binary, but it's a bit more niche. And I think the most important thing is that these terms are all fluid, so people can choose which suits them. And transgender is an even more umbrella term. So transgender, basically, a very simple definition means that your gender identity does not match that which you were assigned at birth. Most experiences of transgender are people who undergo medical or social or both transitions from kind of male to female, will live full-time as another gender which they weren't assigned at birth.
Bisexual.
Okay, so this is a really crucial point. Sexuality and gender are different. So bisexual is a sexual orientation, and it means someone who's attracted to members of both sexes. I think what we're learning here is that there's a lot of terminology.
Yes.
It's quite complicated. And I was saying before, I struggle with some of the terms, but it shouldn't really matter. You should just be yourself. And however that looks, however you identify, whatever you wear, whatever you feel, shouldn't necessarily need a label.
Which public toilet do you use when there's not a gender-neutral toilet available?
It's a good question. I think for me personally, I'm generally comfortable using men's toilets, but sometimes it depends what I'm wearing, right? So like, I don't want to go into too much gross detail, but this is a very impractical outfit to use. I can't use a urinal when I'm wearing a full zip
No,
length. Sometimes men's toilets can be quite intimidating if you're, presenting in a certain way. That said, I personally don't feel uncomfortable, but I will always prefer to use a gender-neutral toilet, and I would default to a gender-neutral toilet. For some reason, people have problems with gender-neutral toilets, but you all have gender-neutral toilets at home. Everyone's bathrooms at home are gender-neutral because you all just use the same bathroom. So what's the difference in public? Do you date with a boy or a girl?
Yeah.
I'm heterosexual, so I have a partner who was assigned female at birth and lives and presents as female. The two things aren't necessarily related, so I'm a heterosexual, non-binary person, but I could easily, equally be bisexual, pansexual, asexual, and basically it doesn't relate. My gender identity and my sexual preference are not related.
Is this natural, being non-binary?
Yes, because it's existed as long as humans have existed. So I would argue that yes, it's very, very natural.
Is it a Western thing? Do you know any non-binary people here in China?
No, it's not a Western thing. There are examples throughout time from different cultures, from indigenous America, from Samoa, from India. These are concepts that go back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Actually, I would argue that the Western thing is male and female, and this is what you do and this is how you dress and act.
But we've discussed this as well, that I feel like the definition of female within my culture is very broad. So I can go to the football, be the big boss, wear the trousers, be the breadwinner, not be the main carer of my child. These are all things that within the culture that I've grown up in are now acceptable for women, although a generation ago not all of those were. So the space, I feel, for a woman to identify with that gender is quite broad.
Okay.
It feels narrower for a man.
Do I know non-binary people in China, apart from me? Yes, I know 2 or 3 openly non-binary people, but statistically there are going to be a lot, because 1% of the population of the UK identifies as transgender or non-binary, and 1% of the population of China is, 40 million people? There or thereabouts, so yes, there will be loads. When and how did you know you are non-binary? I've spent years trying to understand and explore my identity, but I actually only settled on kind of non-binary as a term that I felt fit comfortably with me in the last sort of 12 to 18 months. Before that, I actually used gender fluid for a while. I knew from when I was about 12 years old that I was different and that I didn't feel comfortable being kind of identifying as male, but it's taken me 16 years there or thereabouts to actually understand properly and verbalise and kind of be comfortable to present in this way. 16
years ago, there probably weren't many role models or discussions around this to try and help you in that journey.
I don't want to sound like really old, but the internet wasn't as mature as it is now when I was kind of learning about all this stuff, so I didn't have easy access to resources or to people. So I remember growing up thinking I was different, but I was weird and I was alone, whereas actually I very quickly, once I kind of started to explore more publicly, I very quickly learned that there was a lot of people.
Have you ever experienced any discrimination or even abuse as a non-binary person?
I've experienced a fair amount, both on social media and in person. It's very upsetting, it's very unpleasant. It makes me question my validity as a person. It makes me feel very vulnerable. It makes me feel scared to kind of go outside and be myself. I have to say, actually, in China, I haven't experienced. I think it's really important to say, in person at least, I haven't experienced any abuse or discrimination. But I found generally people in China are just more curious than hostile. Whereas in the UK, I definitely have experienced actual, discrimination and bullying. It's really hard. It's a really, really unpleasant experience. I think, why should we be mean to people just for being themselves? Ultimately the world is a better place if people feel comfortable to live in a way that makes them happy. Do you feel you were born in the wrong body? For me, no. But I think it's quite a commonly understood phenomenon for transgender people. I think it's actually being dispelled quite heavily that a lot of trans people don't actually feel like that, but they just feel that they would be happier presenting and living in a different way rather than being necessarily unhappy. For me personally, I don't think I was born in the wrong body. I just think that I was born in a way that doesn't fit comfortably with the societal expectations of what I should be or how I should look or how I should live. And I'm happy to try and challenge those norms from the comfort of my own body.
Thank you very much for being so frank and sharing with us your experiences. These are obviously very personal experiences for you, but really great that you can share them with our viewers, because as you say, there will be people out there who this will be really helpful in terms of their journey, but also more generally for people to understand and try and break down some of those barriers and concerns that people have, that if people are made to feel uncomfortable, that can make them aggressive, and we don't want to obviously have that in the world. So it would be good to be able to do more of this type of conversation.
The thing about educating is really important, because people are scared of what they don't know. It's a very natural thing, you're scared of the unknown, and so all we can do is show and demonstrate that these things exist, and then people will understand and learn and become more rounded and accepting people as a result. So thank you, I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. See you next time.